Hey everyone, today we're making this hanging jewelry organizer for less than $20, so let's get started. So I'm just taking two 24-inch long 2x4s and pivoting my miter saw to 30 degrees and cutting both sides of each of them, both ends. We are going to be making 2/3 of a triangle, I guess, and we want those angles to be even. And so here's what a 30-degree cut looks like close up, and you'll be doing those to both of your boards. Now, when I say both boards be 24 inches long, you're actually going to want your second board to be about 1.5 inches shorter than your first board. This is because it's going to be butting up against the board, and we don't want your bottom piece, which is what the shorter piece will be, to be longer and make your triangle look weird. So we'll cut it back about 1.5 inches, and then that way it'll look even when it's hanging up on the wall. After you've made your cuts, just give everything a really good sanding. And this is what I mean, how it's like butting up against there. And that bottom board is about 1.5 inches shorter than the longer side board. And then that'll make the triangle look even. And so now, pick whatever sides you want to face front. And I'm sorry it's so zoomed in. That's how it got cropped. And I'm just putting a ton of glue on the end of that of the shorter board there and pressing it up against the sideboard. You want the end grain of the sideboard to face downwards so we don't have weird texture after we stain. And then I let that dry for 24 hours to get a really good seal on it. Now I'm going to be using a 1/8 inch bit and pre-drilling pilot holes into the wood here for the screws I'm about to put in. And pilot holes just really help ensure that your wood won't crack and split, and they serve as guide holes for these long screws I'm going to use. So these screws are about 3 inches long. They're wood screws. They're also star bit screws, and so they won't strip. They're really, really good screws, but this way these pilot holes will just help guide the screw in, and I won't have them like popping out of the sides or whatever and like cutting myself on them either. And then also just to prevent cracks, and it just helps with a more secure bond. So there's the 2 screws in there, and that's all the screws you're going to need in this project. And then I'm just giving this a good sanding once again. You want to sand off any excess glue that may have like smushed out, because when you go to stain, it's not going to be able to stain over any dried wood glue, and you're going to get patchiness. And it actually happened to me, so you'll see what I mean. But just sand it as good as you can, and then sanding also helps make the edges flush with each other. So that's why I'm really sanding the heck out of that corner there. But just sand it all the way around with a real toothy grit sandpaper to really take off that any like glue bits or anything like that. If you want to go back over it with a finer grit sandpaper and make it really smooth, that's a great idea too. That's a great idea. I just get a little lazy. Now I'm going to take my dowels. My dowels are 3/8 inch dowels. Use whatever size you want. Make sure though, as I found out, that you have a small enough dowel for your earrings. Like if you hang by the little part you put in your ear, the little hook that you'd put in your ear, be sure to use a skinnier dowel. And so I'm just measuring out 3 different sizes. I want them to like get smaller as they go up or get bigger as they go down. I'm cutting them with a flush cut saw. Since they're just skinny dowels, like a miter saw or jig would like rip them to shreds. And then I sanded the ends of them just to get rid of any splinters, and I'm going to go ahead and stain them in red mahogany by Minwax is what I'm doing. For the dowels, I really eyeballed the size. Like, I just made sure the longest went almost from one edge to the other, and then the next 2 were smaller than the one before it, right? I'm making them so that they pop out of the back a little bit for even extra storage and just kind of like a design element, and you'll see that in the final product too. So they can really be as long as you need them to be, and you can also put as many dowels as you want into this. I picked 3 because I thought that looked best, and I don't really have a ton of jewelry that I wear regularly, and so I don't need a ton of storage. I just needed something new. And so I'm just giving these a light stain, just 1 coat is all I do. Here they are, finished. And so I let those dry overnight as well. So a lot of these projects, a lot of your time is going to be spent letting things dry, right? Now it's time to cut the hole, or excuse me, drill the holes for the dowels. And so you're going to want to use the same size bit as your dowels. So my dowels are 3/8 inch, like I said. And so I'm using a 3/8 inch bit, so that they fit nice and snug in there, but that they go all the way through. And I used a rubber mallet to like tap them in. So this part is actually the trickiest, and I cut a lot of it out, but it's really tough to like drill straight by hand. So I suggest getting a drill guide and then using your offcuts from the 2x4s, the angled offcuts, to put that drill guide at an angle. So when you drill in, it drills in straight, but you want it at a 30-degree angle. So when you put the dowels in, they're parallel with the bottom. You see what I'm saying? So you don't drill straight down. You have to drill at an angle, 30-degree angle, right? To the boards. Because you want them, like I said, to be parallel. And so like I did, you see how big those holes are? I did a lot of like drilling and like moving the drill bit as I had it on to like kind of carve out holes to make these things straight. But you can save a lot of time with the drill guide. But I eventually got it there. What's great is after they dried, I'm just putting a ton of wood glue into these holes and then setting the dowels where I want them and then anchoring them down. You'll see I use the mallet right there to like hold it in place. Use heavy stuff. I use a drill too, right there, bam, drill, and then mallet will go on that one. Perfect. What's great is after this wood glue dries is I went back with stainable wood filler and filled in the holes. And now that the project's done, you'll see at the end, you can't even tell that I had to make these massive holes for these dowels. And so there it is, like all, it's drying now, and I let that dry overnight once again, just to make sure it's rock solid. Wood glue won't do you wrong, but you have to let it cure. Otherwise those things will just pop right out. And like I said, after I let it dry, I filled those holes with stainable wood filler, is what it's called. Now, it's time to put on your mounting hardware. So I also went ahead and stained the body of the triangle. I stained that in Early American, also by Minwax, just to let you know I liked the contrasting colors a little bit. So anyway, so now I've got my keyhole fasteners here, and I'll have all the materials you need in the description below, and I'm just kind of like eyeballing where to put them on the jewelry organizer. Now my keyhole fasteners, as you saw right there, the bottom one ended up being too tall for the 2x4 on the bottom, but not for the top part because I could put it's at an angle. See how I'm like holding it? And it fits fine because it's going on the diagonal. Well, the bottom one, it can't do that because of how keyhole fasteners are. And here it is all up close, super easy. I used a smaller bit to pre-drill for those little screws and then screwed it in, easy peasy. For the bottom one, all I did, I think I used a pretty good sized drill bit, maybe 3/8 inch again, and I just drilled a hole directly below that keyhole fastener on the bottom board, like, just a straight line down from it. In the middle of that bottom board, and I'll just, when I mount it, that'll just be where the nail goes in that hole. It's totally fine. Now we've got to add our cup hooks for the necklaces and anything you want to hang. So all I did was I used a ruler to measure 1.5 inch into the bottom board there. Because 1 3/4 inches, 1 3/4 inches in, because 2x4s are actually 1.5 by 3.5, and so So half of 3.5 is 1 3/4. I measured all the way down, and then I took a long ruler, a yardstick, and then connected those dots, and now I have a nice center line all the way down. And so I'm just using a skinny drill bit. I think it's 1/8 inch. It's really tiny, and drilling little pilot holes for these cup hole hooks, because these things are impossible to screw in by hand if you don't do pilot holes. Please do pilot holes. And I'm just kind of like eyeballing where I want each of them to go. Basically, I put one like kind of in the middle, and then these two here are going on the outside, and then I put 4 more in between these 3 starting hooks. And again, like I said, I'm just kind of like eyeballing and like spacing with my fingers to like, you know, get a even enough like separation. See, I'm just kind of using my fingers. You can put as many hooks as you want, of course. These 7, I can always put more on if I find I need them in the future. And I'm also using this pair of pliers to like really like crank them in there, because it gets hard to do by hand. Like your fingers will start hurting. And anyway, so I'm just doing this and finishing up here, adding these last 2 hooks, again drilling my super skinny pilot holes, just to give the screw something on the cup hook, something to grab onto and really get in there. And straightening them out with the pliers. That's another good thing about that guideline down the middle, is it really helps like make these things nice and straight. And so there they all are on there, and like decently even enough. And here's how they look like on the front of the board. There they all are, very nice, all 7 of them. And there you can see the little splotch of stain I was talking about with the wood glue. And there's it with the dowel rods in. And next scene, we should have it all hanged up. And I just used, yep, boom. I just used 2, I think construction screws with like wide heads. So, excuse me, not screws, nails. With wide heads to fit in the keyhole fastener up top and to fit in the hole that I have on the bottom. And that's basically it. Like, you are all finished. It's a super easy project that you can do for less than $20. So have fun crafting.